Assalamu alaikum. Uthman radiallahu anh, he burned the Quran, therefore Islam is false. Do people really think that Uthman radiallahu anh gathered the companions and told them, okay, whoever has a sheet of paper, Quran is written on it, bring it, I'm gonna burn it. And then he's just gonna make up his own copy? Subhanallah. Let's make it quick and simple, inshallah. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had many scribes, and Ibn al-Qayyim named 42 of them. Every time the Prophet ﷺ receives revelation, he brings one of the companions and he makes them write it down. And not only that, he used to teach them these verses. Then the Apostle of Allah ﷺ died. Then Umar had an opinion, which is gathering the entire Quran. Some of the companions agreed and some of them disagreed. Umar insisted on Abu Bakr, therefore Abu Bakr agreed, therefore now we have to compile the Quran. And they gathered companions, and they were around 9 or 10. And the leader was Zayd bin Thabit. And in the beginning he refused, then he accepted the offer. Just to let you know, Zayd memorized the entire Quran. Let's assume this is a page. Zayd memorized it. The other 10 companions, they also memorized it, but they set a rule and they followed that rule, which is, if you're gonna bring us a page, you must have heard it from the Prophet himself ﷺ, and you must bring an actual documented copy. Let's assume this is Surah Al-Ahqaf. If you bring us Surah Al-Ahqaf, you have to have it written down and you must have heard it from the Prophet ﷺ himself. And not only one person, 2 people should do the same exact thing. So let's assume this is Surah Al-Ahqaf. A person have to come, he must have heard it from the Prophet ﷺ directly, and he must have it written down. Another person should come having the same exact requirements. And just to let you know, their books back then, it was not like a book that we have nowadays. It's perfect designed book. No, they used to write it on white rocks. They wrote, like Zayd bin Thabit wrote the Quran on white rocks, and he wrote it on animal skins, on leaves, and also on these sheets of paper. And they put all of it in the house of Hafsa, as I remember. So in the house of Hafsa radiallahu anha, there were white rocks, there were animal skins, and there were leaves, and there were papers, like sitting in a corner. And the Quran was written on these things. And now we spoke about the requirements. They wrote the entire Quran and it was perfectly fine. There were 2 incidents that we have to warn about. They wrote the entire Quran and they agreed upon every single thing in the Quran, no differences. But what happened is, they differed on one single word. They differed on this specific word, which is at-tabut, the chest, or like the Ark of the Covenant of Bani Israel. So they differed regarding this word. How do we write it? Is it tabut with a T or a ta, or tabu with an H or ha? And both of them are recitations that they heard from the Prophet ﷺ. They went back to Uthman and he told them to write it down as tabut with a T because it's the accent of Quraysh. The Quran was about to be completed and there were a couple verses missing. Zayd memorized them and the 10 people memorized all of them, but they wanted people who heard it from the Prophet ﷺ directly, and they want also a physical copy, a proof. As we said, they set 2 men requirement. They need 2 testimonies. A man, his name is Khuzaymah bin Thabit, he came, he gave his testimony and he gave the verses that he memorized with a document. So now we're short on another person. Guess what? They accepted it from Khuzaymah because Khuzaymah is special. Sunan Abi Dawood, as it's graded Sahih by Al-Albani and by others, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Shahadata Khuzaymata bi shahadati rajulayn." The testimony of Khuzaymah is equivalent to 2 testimonies. Go over the hadith yourself and read it. This happened because there's an incident where the Prophet ﷺ bought something from someone and Khuzaymah gave his testimony to the Prophet ﷺ. So the Prophet ﷺ said, "Shahadat Khuzaymah bi shahadati rajulayn." The Khuzaymah's testimony is equivalent to 2 people or 2 men. And now the Quran is finished. It's compiled by the companions radiallahu anhum. It was written on papers. It was written on animal skins. It was written on rocks, and they were put at the house of Hafsa radiallahu anha, like in a corner, just like a basement. The Quran was put there. So now Abu Bakr radiallahu anh and Umar radiallahu anh, they died. And we have Uthman radiallahu anh becoming a caliph. What happened is, people used to write on their books and on their own notes, and they used to write the interpretation of the Quran. And some of them used to write the Quran, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abrogates a verse, but they don't erase this verse, so the verse is still there. But when they read their own notes, they know that it's actually abrogated. And it actually happened with multiple companions. And inshallah I'll make a separate video about it because it's gonna be a good one inshallah. And they might write a hadith with the Quran. Like for example, let's assume this is the paper that I have, right? I write here a couple of verses, then I heard a hadith from the Prophet, I wrote it, then I wrote an interpretation of this verse. So these are my notes. If I read it, I can identify them. If someone else comes and he takes my paper, he will think it's a Quran. He will think it's all a hadith. He does not even know what the hell is going on with my own notes. So Uthman radiallahu anh asked for the paper, for the animal skins, for the rocks to be gathered and written in a book, in an actual book. And he wrote 6 copies. And he sent copies to Kufa, to Al-Basra, to Misr, to Dimashq, Damascus, and to Mecca also. And he kept a version that he has it. So it was not recitations that Uthman radiallahu anhu burned. He burned their notes. It was their copies and the copies that they wrote down. And that was good because anyone who has an objection, he can go to the Mus'haf of Uthman and he can verify it. People kept on reciting the Quran. People kept on reciting the Quran with the narrations that they heard from the Prophet ﷺ directly, and it was perfectly fine. And if you want to know what happened after Uthman radiallahu anhu, or if you want to know about the Qurra themselves and how did they appear, like Qalun, Warish, Nafi', Qunbul, Ibn Dhakwan, Shu'ba, Khalaf, all of these Qurra, inshallah, let me know, I'll do part 2 inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.